Donald's nominees for cabinet positions came fast and furious over the last week, each one more dangerous and more qualified than the one before. He warned that he would be looking into making recess appointments. On the Nazi hellscape known as Twitter, he wrote the following quote, any Republican senator seeking the coveted leadership position in the United States Senate must agree to recess appointments in the Senate, without which we will not be able to get people confirmed in a timely manner, by which Donald meant we will not be able to get these dangerously unqualified people confirmed at all. He did lose his battle to get his sycophantic pick Rick Scott installed as Senate Majority Leader. I'm not entirely sanguine that Senator John Thune of South Dakota would be any better, because the answer to the question, will you allow recess appointments, should be no. Senator Thune said basically all options are on the table. This would be a massive, massive abdication of one of the Senate's biggest responsibilities. And Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat, explained the horror of recess appointments in this clip.
If they recess the Senate and hand President Trump the chance to appoint literally anyone he feels like for up to 2 years, that would be setting aside a critical constitutional role of the Senate, the role of advice and consent.
I mean, essentially, the Senate would become an extension of the executive branch, which kind of goes against the whole separation of powers thing. Also, by the way, guys, he's not the president yet, so could you stop? In another attempt to subvert government oversight, Donald is foregoing the standard FBI background checks. Let's look at this clip.
President-elect Trump is bucking a long-established norm in Washington. His transition team is bypassing the traditional FBI background check for some of his cabinet picks. People close to the planning say the team is using private companies to conduct vetting of potential candidates for administration jobs. According to sources, Trump and his allies believe the FBI system is slow. Critics also say the intrusive background checks could turn up embarrassing information used to inflict political damage. Regardless of what intelligence is gathered, the president has a final authority on who he nominates.
Well, I mean, that's always been true about background checks. If you have embarrassing or damaging information about yourself, then don't apply for the job and don't accept the nomination. The problem here is a lot of people don't pay attention to these things. So if Donald and his minions use private firms to quote unquote vet potential nominees and they get a clean bill of health, so to speak, that will make them seem legitimate to a large percentage of the population. Just as a quick reminder, though, Donald would never be able to pass a background check. It just so happens, though, that the American people handed him the one job in the American government that does not require one. So we might want to look into changing that one. Let's just do a quick overview of the worst of Donald's nominees thus far. There's Tulsi Gabbard, who's been nominated as Director of National Intelligence. And here's what Abigail Spanberger had to say about Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard as DNI is not in the best interest of the American people. It's not in the best interest of our national security or our position of leadership on the global stage. The DNI has access to every single secret that we have as a nation. And so nominating someone who has a clear track record of pushing conspiracy theories and aligning herself and excusing the behavior of authoritarians and dictators like Bashar al-Assad, who she met with shortly after he used chemical weapons on his own citizens, or defending the actions of Vladimir Putin.
If that doesn't send chills down your spine, I do not know what will. Except perhaps this. Pro-disease anti-vaxxer and raw milk salmonella enthusiast Bob Kennedy has been nominated to be Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services and everything that entails. Here's a clip about that.
But this could also be a long road ahead for Senate confirmation as we've been talking about these more controversial picks. RFK Jr., he has pushed debunked conspiracy theories around a whole range of public health issues, including around vaccines. He's even said that he would push to remove fluoride for drinking water. He's also a critic of the CDC, and Donald Trump said earlier this year on the campaign trail that he would allow RFK Jr. to, quote, go wild on health.
Sounds great. Then, of course, there's Pete Hegseth, who, for Donald, his only qualifications that matter are he's telegenic and was a Fox host. This also might sound good to Donald because it has recently come to light that Hegseth was investigated for sexual assault in 2017.
Monterey police released a statement late last night with some details about that investigation, including that the alleged victim had bruises on her thigh and that the alleged incident took place at a hotel during the overnight hours. CBS News has asked the Trump transition team for a response to this, and we have not yet heard back.
And this brings us to Matt Gaetz, who's been nominated to be Attorney General of the United States. John Bolton, not exactly a flaming liberal, had a lot to say about that.
Well, it must be the worst nomination for a cabinet position in American history. I think this is something that falls well outside the scope of deference that should be given to a president in nominating members of his senior team. Gaetz is not only totally incompetent for this job, he doesn't have the character. He is a person of moral turpitude. And notwithstanding how difficult it may be politically, this is a nomination the Republican Party should oppose.
Well, I personally think it's a 3 or 4 way tie, but unfortunately, we might find out. Turns out that Gaetz resigned from Congress only 2 days before the House Ethics Committee was set to meet on findings into his alleged sex trafficking and illicit drug use. This is the day Donald announced he was going to nominate him. Since Gaetz resigned from the House, the results of that probe may not become public due to the fact that the Ethics Committee has jurisdiction only over sitting House members. As a result, the House Ethics Committee canceled its meeting. As a result, I should say, of the nomination, the House Ethics Committee canceled its meeting regarding Gaetz's criminal investigation. And now the ethics panel faces a quote-unquote existential crisis. Political writes that lawmakers on the historically bipartisan committee have 2 main options: release their long-running report into his alleged misconduct and risk incurring Donald's wrath, or keep it under wraps and face accusations of burying potentially scandalous information about a nominee for Attorney General, the most powerful law enforcement official in the country. The fact that anybody is taking into account Donald's wrath is extraordinarily worrying, to say the least. Another main concern on releasing the report is destroying the, quote, bipartisan reputation of the committee, unquote. Now, you might be wondering where Speaker of the House Mike Johnson stands on all of this. Let's just say that his position has evolved. Look at this.
At the time, House Speaker Mike Johnson was non-committal on whether the committee's report should be released.
As far as the timing of a release or report or something, I don't know. The Speaker of the House is not involved in that, can't be involved in that.
But today, after attending a gala with the president-elect at Mar-a-Lago, Johnson declaring the report should never see the light of day.
I believe it is very important to maintain the House's tradition of not issuing ethics reports on people who are no longer members of Congress. I think it would open the Pandora's box.
So weird. That's exactly what Speaker Kevin McCarthy did in the wake of January 6th after visiting Donald at Mar-a-Lago. He bent the knee. This does not bode well for the House of Representatives and the role it will play under Johnson's leadership in a second Trump administration, but there's room for some hope of pushback in the Senate. Dems are beginning to lead that battle against allowing any of Donald's nominees to sail through. On Thursday, for example, Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Dick Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, decided to take a stand for once, and along with other Democratic leaders, called for the House Ethics Committee to release its findings on Gaetz. Here's what Durbin had to say.
In light of Donald Trump's selection of former Congressman Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, I'm calling on the House Ethics Committee to preserve and share their report and all relevant documentation on Mr. Gaetz with the Senate Judiciary Committee. The sequence and timing of Mr. Gaetz' resignation from the House raises serious questions about the contents of the House Ethics Committee report. We cannot allow this valuable information from a bipartisan investigation to be hidden from the American people.
Senator Richard Blumenthal outlined the unlikelihood of a recess appointment and the opposition Gaetz faces within his own party.
I can name between 5 and 10 Republicans who are seriously considering voting against this nomination and insisting that there be a vote. Republicans as well as Democrats are absolutely aghast at the idea that we would allow a recess appointment of the top judicial officer in the United States of America. That is absolutely abhorrent to the powers and traditions of the United States Senate and the Constitution.
As Senator Blumenthal said, there are Republicans who recognize how dangerous and absurd the pick of Gaetz is for Attorney General. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska expressed the following, quote, "I don't think it's a serious nomination for Attorney General. We need to have a serious Attorney General. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to consider somebody that is serious." Rep. Max Miller echoed these sentiments, as did aforementioned former Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Representative Gaetz, I just think it's silly. I believe that the president is probably rewarding him for being such a loyal soldier to the president. But the president is smart enough and his team is smart enough to know that Mr. Gaetz will never get confirmed by the Senate.
First of all, I don't think Donald is smart enough to know that. However, we do need to look at the reasons for this pick, because it is nominating Gaetz is incendiary. So on the one hand, we have Gaetz being rewarded for his loyalty. And, you know, if he gets through, he'll owe Donald a lot. And he's made it very clear that he is all in on whatever Donald Trump would ask Gaetz to do. If he doesn't get in, then that kind of eases the way for Gaetz, especially since he's not under investigation anymore, to be put in a position that does not require confirmation. Then, of course, we have something that Donald frequently does. He pushes the envelope. He sees what he can get away with. If Gaetz doesn't get nominated, how many Republican senators were with him? Which ones were against him? How can he figure out a way to push the envelope further the next time? And then, of course, Gaetz is sort of a Trojan horse. And by nominating him, Donald is in some ways softening the ground and leading to a nominee that will be just as bad in practice, but is not nearly as unattractive and dangerous looking on paper. So Donald maybe nominated him knowing that there's a very good chance he won't get confirmed, but that makes it that much easier for him to get his next pick. Again, somebody who will be equally unqualified and equally dangerous to get confirmed, just without the legal baggage. And then, of course, there's a possibility that this is an asymmetric dominance technique. By nominating somebody so horrific, people like Gabbard and Kennedy and Hegseth look less horrific in comparison, even though they are not. So call it a canary in the coal mine, if you will, but that does not mean we are helpless here, regardless of the reasoning behind the Gaetz nomination and the nomination of the other three we discussed today. Everybody can call the representatives, especially the Republican representatives, flood the phone lines, write letters. They, for reasons I'm not quite sure why, but letters have the most impact. Also, you can visit your local Republican district office. So there is something we can do here. We still have time to exert pressure. Let's do that now while we still have a chance. Thank you. Hey, everybody. In case you weren't aware, I am spectacularly bad at self-promotion. So here goes. Please subscribe to our channel and like and share our videos. Your support means so much to all of us. Thank you.